Hello again. So this is week one of the slightly improved, new, shiny HI 2005 Research Methods course, which incorporates learning this year in its title. And I'm taking advantage of where we as a group left off last year to leverage some game-based learning into it to build on some of the work that you did in your first year. So for the first week, in the reading and discussion, we're laying some basic starting points. The first thing in the folder is a very brief and fairly simple overview of constructivism versus behaviorism as basic approaches to education. There's nothing very complicated there, I hope. You may have the gist of some of it already, but it's an important um, foundational piece that you get those definitions um, before you move on to read the second reading, which is about students' perceptions of constructivist instructional methods, which is a paper which talks a little bit about what constructionism is in education. Um, it's also, of course, a research paper, so we'll be coming back to it because it has a research methodology, and we'll be looking at how they actually do the research methods. But for the moment, what I'm really interested in it is the problems they identified, what students understood by constructivist learning, um, what specific examples people were able to identify from their own experience. And that's a question you can answer. Where have you been exposed to it, to constructivism versus behaviorism, and what are your feelings about it? What do you think is good? What do you think is bad in this? What would you like to see happen if you could design a learning experience? What would you put in there? And what are the key parts of it? So read it lightly, bearing in mind that we will come back to it, but think about your own experience of learning and what you would like to see in it. Another important learning development in the past decade, literally in the past decade, is a much greater focus on research-based learning. Moving from a situation where academics, being the sage on the stage, tell you about research into a situation where people are exposed to the process of doing research as early as possible. And Angela Brew is one of the pioneers in this. So this paper's 10 years old now, but it is an easy entry point into this whole idea of research-based learning and why it's important and how it differs from the old style of learning. And it's something that I do a lot of anyway, so it should be slightly familiar territory. Um, and again, the combination of those allows you to think about one of the discussion questions for this week, which is given the opportunity to design some learning, what would you set about doing? How would you like to design it? Yes, Brew. So the final piece and the sort of final question, apart from thinking about constructivist learning and research-based learning and how you would like to do it, is I've got an example of something that was actually done last year in a writing program in an American university, where a group of students for their writing program course undertook to build a module for a popular role-playing game, Call of Cthulhu. So in order to do that, as part of their professional writing program, they had to come up with an idea, obviously. The game is set in roughly the 1920s, so they had to do some background research on the location that they had designed, small town America type of things you'd find there, what sort of background you needed to write into this, developing the plot. They also had to then work on the presentation, and they worked with the game company to look at what standards of professional finishing they were expected to produce for something that could go to publication. Um, so they had a number. I mean, it describes a number of things they had to think about and do in terms of structuring this game experience. Now, we're not, of course, going to exactly copy what they did because it's not entirely precisely what I want, but there are some parallels. There's learning, there's research, um, there's a game design in there for a role-playing type of game. So we're going to look at that. So have a read of that. It shows that it's an interesting paradigm which can be done. There are other programs which do similar types of things, mostly in the writing stuff rather than the research and learning. And I want you to think the final question for the discussion this week so that we can get a feel for people's experience before we move on to thinking more seriously about what is a game and how do we design a learning game and what research do we have to do to design a learning game, is where exactly do we stand in relation to gaming? So I want a sort of brief line or two about what's your own experience. What do you play? What do you like? What do you not like? Um, it's getting to the stage now in the world where they used to say everybody has a book in them. But actually, there's so many people designing games and game jams going on that it's almost true to say that everybody has a game design in them that just wants to get out. So if you have a game idea that wants to get out, pitch it up there in a line. And this will give us a feel around the class. The answer to these questions will give us a warm up about our understanding of constructivist pedagogy, what learning should be, how it should involve research, um, how we can relate that to gaming, and how we can relate that back very much to your own experience of learning and of gaming, so that we define our start point on this journey as being where we are now in this first week, and then we will build on this and add more layers of detail as we go along through the weeks of the module. So read them quickly, respond to them briskly. We're just mapping out the terrain here. It's like we're on a beach. You wake up, you're on a beach, on an island. You have been shipwrecked there. We're now going to define what you've got in your pockets. What tools have you shaved from the shipwreck so that you can explore the island and survive?